So welcome, everybody. We have organized this session in 3 bits. We actually want to leave a lot of time for the last bit, Q&A. Okay, so hopefully we will be done with the content in roughly 30, 40 minutes. The first bit is basically an introduction to the topic. Then we will jump into demonstrations. As far as the intro goes, let's start with the presenters.
Hey, that's the old picture.
Is the old photo?
Yeah, I changed that photo.
You look younger.
I do look younger. I am a little younger there. I am a little younger. That's the first generation iPhone, I think, right there. I'm an Android guy now, though.
Okay.
I'm Chris LeSueur, product manager on the apps team. I work with many of our apps, Explorer, App Studio, ArcPad, and I get to work with these guys.
My name is Jeff Shaner. I'm also a product manager on our apps team. I'm responsible for the workforce for ArcGIS app that we're going to talk about today, Collector, and the Operations Dashboard app as well.
My name is Ismael Chivite. I work as well in the product management team and work with our mobile apps without differentiation, just all of them. So what is this presentation about? I'm sure many of you work in organizations that depend highly on data being captured in the field. And there are actually tremendous opportunities with ArcGIS to optimize this work, to optimize these field operations. So this presentation is really about that. I have people out in the field. How can geography and GIS play a role on helping me optimize these workflows? How I can do my job faster, better, with fewer mistakes? And specifically, how not just GIS, but how ArcGIS tools can help me do this work. So we will basically go through an overview of the different aspects of field operations where ArcGIS tools can help. Don't think of this just as the tools you use to actually capture the data, but the entire workflow, starting with planning. How can I figure where people need to go? What GIS and ArcGIS can do for me to help me plan field operations. Coordinate the work. So say people are in the field. Can a map really help me understand where people are, where they need to go, and coordinate these operations? How geography can help me help people get to places where they need to do their work? How GIS will provide to me the best tools possible to capture the data in the field efficiently? And finally, can actually GIS help me create a real-time view of my operations so folks in my organization understand what is going on? That's basically the tour that we are going to go through in this presentation. Going from ArcGIS Desktop, for example, to Workforce for ArcGIS, which is a new application that will ship very soon. Actually, we are just 1 week away from the release of this application on iOS, and it is already in beta. We will also touch on Navigator for ArcGIS, which obviously is going to help us with this step where we, help people go to places, as well as Collector, Survey123, as well as Drone to Map and Operations Dashboard. Our goal today is sort of look at the whole workflow of field operations and map the applications in ArcGIS that can help us in each of these steps. It's really an introduction to all of these apps and how they work together. But from this session, you may find, I'm going to learn more about this app or that app, and there are other sessions where you can actually get more details of each of the apps. So with this, I'm going to jump into the second aspect of the presentation, which is actually the practical aspect of it, where we will go step by step through the flow. Let's just start with ArcGIS Desktop. Is ArcGIS Desktop a mobile application? Well, no, but it can actually play a tremendous role helping us do planning. Think about all the analytical tools in ArcGIS Desktop and how they can help us complement the planning from other third-party tools. I'm talking about network analysis, suitability analysis with raster, or simple queries. The best is probably to see a demonstration. So now Jeff is going to guide us through ArcGIS Desktop for planning.
For a lot of planners, actually, this is their favorite planning tool, right? How many people are using this as their planning tool today? Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? You're GIS professionals. We can do better, right? But this is the reality for a lot of folks. And this is as we started to build workforce for ArcGIS and talk to customers that were trying to plan effective work management solutions for their field teams using our platform. This is a lot of what we've seen. So we can do better. And I want to take you through a few things within just ArcGIS Pro to think about. The first is a scenario that's really around pipeline inspections. Anyone in the pipeline business? Right. So quite often there's field operations done where they actually run pigging through the line. And you're looking for anomalies or places where there's further investigation that needs to happen. And a geographic approach can really help you with that. Here's pipeline through the southwest, and the pigging operation actually identified a bunch of ground reference markers in which the pig was run. And out of that, I discovered a set of anomalies where there's bends in the pipe, perhaps, that need further investigation before there might be some form of a leak or repair that needs to happen. So it's quite simple just looking at the map to see patterns, or do queries against the map to see patterns, and identify where you need to deploy crews and optimize those operations based upon the hotspots. And using queries in ArcGIS Pro and just simple spatial analysis, you can do that. Another example is with suitability analysis in forestry. So looking at this forested area, I want to be able to go and find all of the coniferous trees. And then I want to look at the coniferous trees that are older than 15 years, if I can turn the layer on. And those that are south-facing. And then do some random point sampling. And from the random point sampling, I could then generate the work that needs to actually be done in the field. So I could use Pro and my knowledge with building GIS data and doing analysis to effectively assign and create work for my field teams. The last one I want to show you is one we'll build on in a scenario for the rest of the session, is about drought monitoring. If anyone didn't notice, California is in a bit of a drought, and water conservation is really important for us. Well, work management can come through that spreadsheet that I started with and into the ArcGIS platform. And I want to show you a couple of the layers here. I took the actual spreadsheet data and loaded it in using the lat long values into Pro, and here we have a set of work assignments, right? There are all of these different types. In fact, I could open that up and you can see there's watering violations, there's a rebate program where customers have called in on a rebate, there's some use analysis, residential inspections that need to happen. We have 3 locations at which we have field workers. They happen to be Ishmael, Chris, and myself. What a coincidence. We have a second job here in San Diego. And what I was able to do with Pro, just using some of the network capabilities, is generate, using location allocation and capacity-based location allocation, what work we could get done in a day. We know that in a couple of hours, each of us could accomplish 15 work orders in a day. Well, from where we start our day, I want to be able to use the tools in ArcGIS to find out which of those work orders I could actually complete. And then we can look at loading them into our workforce product and making them actionable inside of the ArcGIS platform.
So far we have seen how just the desktop tool can help us with planning. Often these analyses are run and shared in different ways. Might be a PDF, might be an Excel file. Next we are going to look at a new product called Workforce for ArcGIS. The beauty of Workforce for ArcGIS is that it allows you to bring all of these analyses into the daily operations of your work. So we are taking all this analysis away from your desktop and web enabling it. Why would we web enable this analysis? Because as Jeff was describing, he was at the end of the day trying to figure what needs to be done and where and by who. And knowing these three things, we can load them in Workforce. So a field coordinator can have a live map showing the tasks that need to be done, where and by who. As you will see very soon, Workforce has two aspects. One is this back office perspective for the field coordinator. Gives you visibility of the operations. But it also has a mobile component where field crews will receive notifications. So this stuff Jeff was putting together on the desktop is now part of the daily operations. Overall, Workforce for ArcGIS is really about making people in the back office and in the field work as a team. I get work orders, I assign them to people, people get the work orders, they do work, they tell me how they are doing, and then in the back office we know where we are.
So here's the Workforce web application. When you start to use Workforce, has anyone looked at Workforce yet and played with it? Okay, a few of you have. So you can create a Workforce project inside of your ArcGIS organization. I've created one called Drought Monitoring, and here are a list of assignments that have been already created and assigned. And in the web application, I can see them visually on the map, as well as the location of Ismail, Chris, and myself, and others that are a part of the project, and also all of the work assignments that are there. And with the Workforce web application, I can directly create new assignments, or I could look at the assignments that have already been created and filter that view. I can look at the list that we've completed, the list that's in progress or currently being worked on or assigned, and I can add additional filters as which ones are the highest priority, and really provide that optimal view for someone who's managing that field workforce, needing to create and assign work. And as part of that, I can look at not just the assignments, but the workers view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back over to ArcGIS Pro really quickly. The way I did that location allocation work was I used the tasks capability inside of Pro and pre-generated that because we didn't want to sit here and look at it running. But I am going to start another process, which is actually looking at the results of that and the layers that were created from the location allocation. And I've got my Workforce project loaded into Pro. And it's actually working through that list, defining the best suitability for Chris, Ismail, and myself to create work assignments and append them directly into my Workforce project. And as that's loading in, you're going to see those numbers jump. Here you can see Ishmael's up to 21 different work assignments, and Chris has got 18 work assignments. Stuff that we've carried over from not finishing them yesterday. I said we could do 15 in a day. Looks like we've got a busy day ahead of us. And you can see how now that workload went from just a few assignments, which I've got to change my filters on, to quite a few assignments that are organized in different locations based upon where we start our day. So you can see how quickly we can load work into the Workforce project using the analysis capabilities directly in Pro. We are also releasing a set of scripts. So if you want to automate this, integrate it with a work management system, we've got scripts out there in Python that you can use to pull from your work management system and load in and pull back out if you'd like to. Sorry? The question was, must you work with Pro? And the answer is no. We're using Pro as a desktop application to work with, but these are feature services and web maps. And we publish the schema of them with Workforce so you can load them any way you want. With a Python script, with geo events if you use geo event server, directly against the REST API using a web application.
Yes. So if you had your own scheduling system and you were creating work orders and you knew who was going to work on these work orders, you would essentially load those in a feature service and they will pop up in this web application right away.
And we're actually working with a number of business partners that have solutions around this already today. So they can optimize that for you and integrate with, say, like CityWorks in the local government space or Cartograph. So you can work with our partners either as system integrators or providers of end solution applications that integrate directly within Workforce as well.
So Workforce really complements whatever system you have for doing the planning and the scheduling, right? What it brings is this geographic perspective of where things need to be done and where are those who will work on them. You don't need to create a service to integrate with a third-party asset management system or a scheduling system. You simply need to get an export from the system into a format such as a CSV file that we can basically parse and load into the Workforce feature service. This is often done, say, with a Python script, for example, right? You have your system, generates the CSV file or populates a database. Well, it's as dynamic as often you load the data from your system into Workforce.
So it's sync with this data, or it's one way, or you can sync both ways?
Well, so the question is, will it sync two ways, or is it a one-way only? We described one way only so far, where you have a scheduling system that you use to generate some file that we can read and push into Workforce. But similarly, if your own scheduling system has an API that someone can hit to alter the work orders, we could go the other way. There is nothing in the software in Esri, in Workforce, that will have like a magic button that integrates with a particular vendor. We don't do that because there are actually many vendors and it will be quite difficult. But if we work with APIs, if the systems are open and provide APIs that can be invoked, a system integrator or yourselves, if you understand the APIs, can relatively simply figure how to feed both systems both ways.
Yeah, the city of Atlanta is a good case in point. They actually have an Infor system, and all of their planned maintenance activities for hydrants are managed through the Infor system. But what happens with the city of Atlanta is that all those work orders are generated and then printed as paper and then handed out to the field workers. And what they found, when they used the Operations Dashboard app, they generated some service level agreement views and found that they weren't completing their work orders, or multiple people were completing the same work order because the paper never made it back in. So what they did was they integrated with Infor to bring all the planned work in. They complete the work assignments inside of Workforce and they push them back out, right? So you can absolutely do it with Infor, and you can do it with most of the other systems that are out there.
So if you want to play with Workforce for ArcGIS, you can do it today. You can open a web browser and go to workforce.arcgis.com. Then you sign in with your ArcGIS Online credentials, and you will see that easily you can create a project with people and a project with types of assignments. And from there, you can do, if you want, the integration with third-party systems. So far, we looked at the back office. But Workforce has two aspects, the back office and the front office. The front office is really the Workforce mobile application that field users carry to receive the assignments that they are going to work on. So we are going to have that step next. Now, Workforce for ArcGIS in your mobile device doesn't typically work in isolation. Often people want to combine it with other apps. For example, in the next demonstration, we are going to use Workforce in combination with Navigator for ArcGIS. So we are basically going to have Chris open Workforce, understand the orders that he needs to do, and then navigate to the location to do the work, and then communicate back to the office when the job has been done.
All right. So I'm playing the role of a water technician. I go out, I get my assignments, and I perform different jobs in the field. Typically, I would go into the office, get a paper list of assignments for the day, and head out and go to each location to perform those. But in this case, I am just going to pull up my iPhone, my smart device here, and log into Workforce. Here, I'm in Workforce for ArcGIS Mobile. I'm going to start working. So down the bottom right, I'm currently set as not working. I'm going to set my status to working. So now the office, they know that, okay, Chris is online, he's working, and they can follow me, actually, and where I'm at. I have a list of assignments here. You can also look at that in a map view. And, of course, it's going to use my GPS and know where I'm at. So the office knows where I am, and I know what's around me. Let's go back to that list. And I have a few critical items to address here. First one is a water hydrant shutoff. We'll click on that, and I get more details about the assignment. My wedding ring hit that volume. Okay, that's it. Won't do that again. I can look at a map view, see where I am in relation to the assignment. I can see information, so it says a hydrant leak requires shutoff and tells me the hydrant ID. Great. I'm going to acknowledge that I have received this. This is critical, so it gives me that, hey, acknowledge that we sent this to you. So now the office knows I've received it. I'm actually going to start working on this assignment and pull that out in just a second. But I need to know how to get there. And that's where we see these apps working together. So I simply hit that button. It says Navigate to Assignment. And it opens up Navigator for ArcGIS and routes me to that assignment from my current location. Navigator, I can see turn-by-turn directions of where I need to go. It tells me the distance. And just like you would expect with a navigation app on your smartphone, it gives you turn-by-turn directions.
Starting route to 2861 Barnard Street. Go southwest on Leland Street toward Bob Street. In 0.2 miles, turn right on Bob Street.
You get the idea? Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, we won't listen to the whole thing. I'll turn that down. In fact, I'm gonna pull that out so we don't get that. So it's going to give me turn-by-turn directions and get me to my location. Now there's a few things that are important to know about Navigator, things that set it apart. One is that all the data and routing is done offline. So if I'm in a remote area, I can still route to locations. I can still get there. It's the routing and data is all offline. Two is that it works with other apps. You see, it works with Workforce. I kind of jump from one to the next. You barely know I'm in a different app. It does the same with Collector and Survey123. And three, the last one is that it uses, you can use your own custom data. And that's really unique to us, is that you can have your own custom streets in there or your own custom items to locate to into the network data set. So in this one I have the hydrants. The fire hydrants are actually part of this, so I can click on one or I can search for one and navigate myself to those locations.
Right now at this point it doesn't require internet connection?
The navigation, once I start, it does not require an internet connection. To get my work orders from Workforce, that does. But the navigation piece, that doesn't require any. All of that data is in a mobile map package offline, and I can do that.
Is there any preparation work has to be done to make it work? For example, like download the base map?
Yep. So we offer some map files for each state in the U.S. and other countries around the world. Or we have tools that allow you using ArcGIS Pro to cook or to create your own, add to those data sets as well.
Same thing for field work, right? If it is an offline mode, they can still download the map and then collect data and then synchronize.
Yep, we're going to get to that in a little, yeah.
So you're saying also that Workforce, you can download the data, like the assignments that they, if you're going to be in the area without
The workforce itself is a connected application at this point in time. For our first release, it's going to be a connected application. But the work assignments will stay local on your device. But if you lose that internet connection, you won't be able to change your status on them, right? Well, and then, so this is the first release. And then what we're going to do is build workforce in a way that it doesn't matter. It's an occasionally connected application. It'll take advantage of being connected, but if you lose connectivity, you can do all of your operations, do all your logging of locations when you're offline. That'll happen near the end of this year. For now, if you want to use Workforce, if you lose connection, you'll see your list of work. It'll tell you that you've lost connection, but you wouldn't be able to change the status on your work assignment.
All right, I've arrived at my location. As you can see, in Navigator, it tells me, route completed, and even prompts me because it knows it came from Workforce, return to Workforce. So I'll return to Workforce, back at my hydrant shut off. Imagine I'm at the location. Really what I need to do is just, get my big wrench and shut off this hydrant. And after I do that, After I do that, I just simply hit finish at the bottom. It's notified the back office, and I can move on to my next assignment. Now I see I have another hydrant shut off here, and it's in the same location. So I'm just going to acknowledge that I'm going to work on that, work on this hydrant. Now imagine I try to work on this one, but I can't. It's too tight. I'm not able to complete my assignment. So instead of finish, I'm going to hit decline, and it automatically prompts me, okay, why are you declining this? What is the issue here? And it forces me to actually put in, so I'm going to put in some information that it's too tight. I'm going to have to come back later and work on this. And the office will be acknowledged of that. And boom, I can move on to my next assignment.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to show you is that Chris changed his working status, and now we see him as working in the application. And I can click on that and see his location because we're logging his location in the background. We know where he's at. And I could actually contact him directly with, I shouldn't go over that, but that's Chris's phone number for later. You can call me. You can give him a call. I could actually interact with him through the Workforce web application. Likewise, I can see the work that he's doing, and we can see that he completed this one water shutoff, and he's declined another one. So you can get that instant feedback when you're connected of the work that Chris is doing.
In this particular workflow, all we used was Workforce and Navigator. We didn't capture any data because declining or saying I'm done really confirms that the task was completed. Next, we're going to look at tools we have in ArcGIS to help you capture data in the field. We have basically two tools. One is for map-centric data collection workflows, is Collector, and I'm sure many of you know it. The second one that we are going to look at is called Survey123. This is a new application that was released this past week, the first version. This is a form-centric application. Let me turn it over to Chris to see them both working.
Fantastic. All right, so I've finished, or I declined my last assignment. I'm going to move on to the next one. I see I've got a critical one for a water efficiency rebate. As Jeff mentioned, California, we are in a drought, and cities like the one I live in will give you a rebate if you remove your grass and put in something else. That drought-tolerant plants, synthetic grass, wood chips, whatever. They'll give you a rebate. And so my job is to go out, calculate the area of someone's grass so that we can really figure out how much of a rebate we're going to give them. So again, I'll look at that assignment I've been given, acknowledge that I have it. I'm going to start working on it, and I need to navigate to this assignment. Start navigation, and there we go. turned off the audio this time. We didn't need to hear that voice again. Now imagine as I'm going along my route to go do this rebate analysis, I see something. I see someone is watering their lawn, and I know they're watering their lawn on the wrong day and on the wrong side of the street. And I'm not joking, they drive around my neighborhood and they give you violations and citations for doing this. So this is not my planned job, but I see this is happening, and I'm gonna put a stop to this, and I'm gonna use Survey123. So this is Survey123. This is a form-based data collection application. So in here, I have a few different surveys I can use. I have one, the wastewater violation, which I am at the location. I'm going to use this. So hit collect. It loads in my survey, and really, you just see a form. I need to fill out the information. It knows the date and time I'm here. I don't need to put anything else in there. I can put they were overwatering, broken sprinkler, wrong time of day, and an assignment. I noticed while driving. I'll put in the notes. And of course, I need to document this. This is real, so I'm going to take a picture of these, the criminal activity here with the sprinklers going off, and the location. Now I'm inside this building, so it thinks I'm in the convention center. So I'm going to have to manually adjust the location to the right spot. It should be when I was driving, I was looking, I think I was, yep, right about there. Okay. And last, was this a commercial, a business, or it was residential, and the offender's name, I have to get their name. This is Mr. Tim Smith. Sorry if there's any Tim Smiths or Snith. Sorry if there's, with a capital M. And is the offender present or not? So this is kind of some of the logic built into Survey123. If I select no, I can just submit it. If I select yes, then I'm given the option that they sign this. They have to give me a signature. I want to document this, have proof. So yes, they are here, and I'll hit survey completed and send that off. That gets pushed back. And now I'm done with the survey. I can move on to the rest of my job. And I drive to my location, return to, I get to the new site. It says return to workforce, because that's where I started this whole process where I can do this rebate efficiency. Now this requires a different tool. This requires me to figure out the area of lawn in front of the location. So instead of Navigate or Survey123, I'm going to collect, and it opens up Collector for ArcGIS. Collector for ArcGIS is doing data capture in the field that's more map-centric. I want to see the map. I want to get a little more accurate, and also want to create maybe not just points, but lines of polygons. In this case, I'm going to create an area, a rebate area for the front lawn. I'll do that by just clicking on the map. If I want to get really accurate, we have a new release of Collector coming out, which supports, I can zoom in and do a little spyglass here, which supports some high accuracy Bluetooth devices. So you can get down to that sub-meter accuracy now with a Bluetooth device and using an iOS or Android or Windows device and collector. All right, once I'm done with digitizing, I will say, what am I going to convert this to? Synthetic turf, of course. It looks so beautiful. And sprinklers, it's synthetic turf. I think not applicable. And I could put in notes if needed as well. I've got my digitizing done. Yep. And I will say submit. Now that gets sent back to the office. They can calculate the rebate that's going to be done for this assignment. I slide right over into Workforce, say finish, and I've got 15 more assignments to do for the day. I go about, do the rest of my work.
And I know he really did that work because I'm here in Workforce, and I see that he completed that work assignment. here it is right here. And I can zoom in, and in the dispatching web map, I've added other layers. I added in the water rebate layer, and there is the polygon area that Chris just created. That's the synthetic turf and all the details that he provided.
So is it Survey123 working offline?
So the question is if Survey123 works offline. The answer is yes, of course. Yeah, Collector and Survey, they both work completely offline or online.
So right now only workflow.
Workforce at this moment is the only one that has a dependency on connectivity to really operate normally. Yes, and it's only temporary. Yeah.
So in Collector you can not just for but also thousands of times, and in the Survey123 you can have legacy. What are the other differences between?
So the question is, what are the differences between Survey123 and Collector? I mean, at a high level is whether the workflow is map-centric or form-centric. But there are more differences, right? What are the type of geographies that you can capture with each application? At this moment, Collector supports points, lines, and polys, but Survey can only do points. This is also temporary because you will be able to capture lines and polys as well. You may argue as well that you can actually do forms in Collector, and he's right. You can collect attributes, right? What you don't get is the richness of rules and user input validation that you get in Survey123. But give us a little bit of time because we want to bring these smart form features in Collector as well. You may argue, well, in Survey123 I cannot see a map where I can see all the work that others are doing, like in Collector. Give us a little bit of time because we will also improve the mapping capabilities in Survey123. I mean, it makes sense to have two applications because there are certainly workflows that are strictly form-centric with geography and others which are strictly map-centric with attribute editing. It's kind of in the middle where you need to really figure which tool is more adequate for your workflow. And that is often not something that you are going to resolve by looking at an Excel file kind of feature function. The best is that you experience both applications, you play with them to really understand when to apply to one workflow or the other.
Can you create one, print out one from the Survey123? The reason I ask is because the first time I heard about it, someone told me about Survey123. I said, hey, we collect data with the collector, and then people in the office need to print PDF or the supervisor and show what they collect, including a picture, and there is no such option.
Right. So the question is, do you have any capability to report, print, create a PDF, the data that is captured in the field? And the answer is yes. There are actually, this is the whole point of this session, right? To give you a sneak peek of the different applications so you can choose other tech sessions where you can learn more. So if you go specifically to the Survey123 sessions, you will see that Survey123 has pretty advanced reporting capabilities where you can see the data that is captured and analyze it and report it. There was another question. Question is, will Collector work against a tablet with connectivity to Trimble?
Absolutely. And this is what we're doing in our beta release right now of Collector, which will come out in a couple of weeks, is that not only can you work with that external receiver if you use an RTK network or Trimble's RTX network, you can subscribe to those networks. And we have in Collector built in on-the-fly datum transformations. So now you can transform your coordinates from the local state plane NAD83 coordinate system into, WGS84 if you want, and attach all of the GNSS data directly onto the features, including vertical.
One more question in the back. Yeah.
In Workforce, can you create a work order in the field and attach massing?
That's a great question. At this point in time, you can't. The dispatcher is the only user, or you through a Python script are the only ones that can create new work assignments. That is something we're looking at in our backlog. And it would be interesting to talk to you about some of the workflows around that, because we've been debating, some organizations want to do that. Some of them are saying, no, don't let my field workers create new work assignments.
Next question.
Yeah, I got two questions. One, piggybacking on our question. Sometimes we are used to some specific format in Excel, even though we are collecting the data. Some of the supervisors, they're used to specific format. Can we throw what you collect into that specific format?
Yes, that's a great question. So your folks are used to, a particular way of representing the data that is captured. Can I get data out of ArcGIS and represent it in that way? The answer is yes, of course. We have some reporting capabilities in ArcGIS, very limited. We will never get to the exact reports that you have. Now, I have seen people doing very creative things. For example, if you are used to see the results of your data collection in an Excel format, like you mentioned, export the data from ArcGIS, from your feature service, in CSV format. Bring it over into Excel. And in Excel you can define a data source. Make the CSV file your data source, so all these charts and different worksheets and aggregates that you already have in Excel will come to life with the data you captured in ArcGIS.
Second question. So in the forums, can you bring in a drawing? Can you access a drawing? Can you see the drawing?
Right, so the question is specific to Survey123 in this case. You are saying if you can bring a drawing into the form. The answer is yes. Among the many different things that you can configure in a form, you can actually bring images. Images often help people capture data more accurately from the field. For example, if you have a list of choices for plants, you can have photos of the different plants. If you have like a representation of a tree that specifies, the different heights of things in the tree, you can include it into the form. So when people capture data, they can really do things as you would expect them to do them. We are going to even add a feature where you can bring a photo and let people draw on top of it, right? Not now, but this is planned for an upcoming release. And Survey is updated every month. Next question. Question on operating system support, Navigator and Workforce on Windows.
Yeah, so today Workforce, actually when we release in a month with Workforce, that will be on the iOS platform and the web experience. We're in beta right now on an Android version, and in a month we'll start a beta on the Windows platform. And we'll be releasing those two, Android and Windows, later this year. So yes, and on Navigator we have that application on Android. It's not in beta yet, I don't think.
Navigator?
No, or is it in beta now?
It's in beta.
So many platforms, so many apps.
And those are all available downstairs. You can view them at the island.
That's right, yeah.
Workforce on Windows, Workforce on Android. They're not quite in beta yet, but they're available to you can see down the island.
Did Collector or Survey123 support relationship, this table, like many to many, or?
Yes.
Both of them support feature service related tables. Both Collector and Survey123. So.
This Collector and on Windows, we couldn't see it back.
Okay.
In iOS it worked, but on Windows.
Okay. So let's take that question off topic. So there is an issue with Collector working with many-to-many relationships in Windows. So let's work on it. Absolutely. Two more questions.
Infer from your ability to go offline that we can configure Navigator so that it's not using every world geocoder and thus spreading ArcGIS Online credits for every deployment.
Right. So let's go back to the Navigator. The question is, can I configure Navigator with my own data? Right. A lot of people actually like that Esri provides the data, but what if you have streets that are not showing or service roads that are not showing in commercial data sets? With ArcGIS Pro, you can create a network data set, and you can bring this over to Navigator. In fact, you can even create locators for your own assets, which come into Navigator as well. Then there is the question of the credits, right? I don't want to consume credits. When you geocode things in Navigator, you are actually not consuming credits because you are hitting the locator that is local in your device. Just wanted to make that clarification.
I'm an engineer, so I don't have this against me. A lot of technical stuff's kind of over my head, but for the Workforce app, and I was at another presentation, so you might have said it, I missed it, but I'm interested to know, can you bring real-time data into the Workforce app
Absolutely. There's a fundamental concept in the web map with layers as well that's a layer refresh capability. And you can configure that to whatever frequency you would like, preferably not every second, but you know, a frequency that makes sense. And our applications react to that, including the workforce application. So you can add those layers in. You'll see the latest information all the time, whether that be through the web application or in the mobile application. The only thing to consider there is if you're in an area with low or no connectivity, and then you're going to be where you got your last connection.
That's an interesting question because it really leads into the next part of the presentation. How do we build a common operating picture of what is happening? How can I access in real time, you know, where people are, what work needs to be done? So let's have a look at Operations Dashboard.
Thank you for leading into the demo. So this is the Operations Dashboard app, and I actually want to go back to what Chris just did. You know, he went out with Survey123 and marked that violation. Well, it happened to come in right here. So we lost a bit of the effect because that demo was like, what, 10 minutes ago now? But there is the date and time observed, and there's the actual signature that he inserted as well. So
the photo.
Let's see, where is that? Oh yeah. There's a picture right there too. So you see that information coming in, and could you not believe that we actually did that? I mean, come on, give us a break.
Could have been smudge sprinkled.
Yeah, it could have been. That's true. So the Operations Dashboard is really listening to that heartbeat, right? And we're seeing the information that's centered around our workforce project here. Like in the left, or in the right, sorry, we're seeing the list of total assignments, those that are completed, those that are remaining. Who are the top performers? Well, it's a little tilted to an account that we have set up that's publishing, the ones that I was using to publish all of those work assignments. The different types, a threshold. So you can get this real-time operational view of what's happening. And we can apply filters to that as well. So if I only wanted to look at the assigned work, all of those information graphics filter to that specific view, or what was completed, or what is yet to be completed and is currently in an unassigned state. And so everything's reactive to that. And as the data changes, the dashboard updates. And this works not only with your mobile workforce, but we have integrations with data that doesn't necessarily move, like SCADA data. So does anyone here use OSIsoft as their system? Well, OSIsoft has an integration directly inside of the Operations Dashboard. So if you're monitoring, flow through a network, well, you can get alerts off that, and through the Operations Dashboard, actually go back in time and look at where things may have gone wrong. So Operations Dashboard is a great application for giving you that situational awareness along with your field workforce.
So with this, we finish our second half of our second part of the presentation. We wanted to give you an overall, overview of the different steps and some of the apps that can help you in each of them. Now, I want to emphasize here that we didn't actually exploit or show absolutely every possibility that you have in ArcGIS. Just this last bit of monitoring real-time operations. We presented Operations Dashboard, but there are so many other options. You can simply create a web map and set refresh rates on it. You can create applications with Web App Builder, even story maps, and they will work just as well. You can use Explorer for ArcGIS or even ArcGIS Pro to look at the live data that is being processed and worked on with the different collector Survey123 applications that you saw. So now we will continue with more questions for a few more minutes, if you have any. Yes?
You mentioned Navigator going offline. You could have a network data set at a statewide level. Is that possible?
Yeah, so maybe we should explain a little bit about how Navigator works. When you use the Navigator application, the first thing that you do is you download a map. Esri, we provide a set of street maps that you can use as part of the product, and they're available at the statewide level, so you could download the state of California if you like, and just use it. And it's a street network that lets you search for places and addresses, and you can navigate against it. And there's no consumption of credits for any of that, and it works fully offline. Now, if you want to do more, you want to take that street map data, and maybe you want to add your own asset layers on it. What we showed you actually was a hydrants layer on top of the map, but we're using the same street network for the routing. You could just add your own layers on there. You can create a locator so that you could search against those hydrants. And now in Navigator, I can search and navigate with my asset data on top of it. Likewise, you can customize the road network and actually build in your own private roads as part of that solution for navigation.
So sometimes the issue is the size, right? Like you asked specifically nationwide network. So just to give you an idea, California is 2 gigabytes.
2 gigs. So that's the network, the streets, the locators.
And most of these 2 gigabytes are actually the locators. So if you drop the locator, the size of California will drop well beyond 1 gigabyte.
You mentioned additional map functionality for Survey123. Would that include things like, for example, when we do a water line shutdown, we want to associate the hydrants that would be out of service during that shutdown, like, so that you can select features and associate them to the survey?
So in terms of improvements in Survey123 to capture new geometries, what we have in the immediate roadmap is specifically ability to add lines and polys. There was another question over here. Yes?
For each of the 4 mobile apps, can you explain briefly how credits are being consumed in the users in the field?
This is a question about credits. I'm surprised how scary credits are to all of you, aren't they? Yes.
Depends how usable is it to the user base.
Right. Really credit consumption, there is a myth, right, about credit consumption. There are 2 basic operations that can kill you with credit consumption. There's tile generation and massive geocoding. Okay? Everything else, the expense of credits that you will incur is pretty much marginal. The price of credits for storage, it's absolutely marginal. With the credits you get with a level 1 ArcGIS Online organization, if you can expire, you can run over these credits just with the storage, just give us a call. It's going to be really, really tough to do. But to your question, how these applications work with credits. Let's think about workforce. You will never consume credits with workforce. What about collector? Never ever.
Even the address search and collector isn't geocoding. It's not persistent, so that doesn't use a credit to search an address in collector.
One spot in collector where you could. If you want to do online routing inside of collector and not use Navigator, that will consume credits if you use it.
And also if you push photos, right? If you're capturing photos, they will be persisted in ArcGIS Online, and there is credit consumption for storage. But going back, if you just Google ArcGIS Online pricing, I believe it's like 2 cents per month per a couple of gigabytes. Yeah. It's like you really need to add a lot of photos to really feel it.
We don't charge off feature storage for the attachments. It's on file storage, which is...
File storage is much, much cheaper. Yes. The same applies to Survey123. You can't really run out of credits unless you go absolutely crazy, but real crazy, uploading huge, actually very huge, big photos.
Yeah. Assignments be polygons?
That's a great question. The question was, can assignments be polygons? At this point in time, no. The assignments themselves are point locations, but you have the ability, say you had a polygon layer inside of your workforce project, you can select that polygon and say create a work assignment, add it. So it'll generate a work assignment at the centroid of that polygon. Yeah. We go ahead.
Right. So the question is, editing on Survey123, coming before the end of the year, you will be able to bring features into your mobile device, open the smart forms, and edit the information. At this moment, it's only capturing new data before the end of the year.
Actually, the follow-up question is, I have one pilot. They try to transfer the table inspection form into like using the Survey123. So that has signature for the inspector and the supervisor signature. So my concern is like for the supervisor signature, how to put into the workflow.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
We didn't quite get the question.
Yeah.
Okay, we can take after. Any other questions? Yes?
We can talk about that afterwards, but just in general, have you guys encountered any problems like, for example, some organizations, they might have their own server, like ArcGIS server, and then when they use Collector, they might have encountered some issues about the basement downloading. Like in some conditions when they are outside,
Okay.
they cannot download basement.
Okay, so when you are working, the question is about ArcGIS server, portal for ArcGIS, and downloading things from Collector for ArcGIS specifically. Something you need to keep in mind when working with server and portal is where is this ArcGIS instance running, right? Often server and portal are running behind the firewall, so they cannot be accessed from the outside because the IP of your server is not exposed to the internet. In these cases, the way people typically work is as follows. You go to the office, connect to the Wi-Fi, connect to your portal, download your work orders, your base maps, your forms, get out into the field, work in disconnected mode, capture all the data, and you won't be able to submit the data to your server because your server is behind the firewall. So you either connect via VPN to your network or you go back to the office, Wi-Fi, and push. So if you have experienced problems downloading base maps into Collector, maybe it's just a matter of connectivity. Yeah. There is no workaround when a server is hidden behind the firewall, right? It's either VPN or
a reverse proxy. If you can, maybe you give your IT people a dozen donuts in the morning and convince them that they can poke a hole in the firewall and set up a reverse proxy. Yeah.
But there are other situations where work in health, you're working far away from internet connectivity. I mean, this is all great when you're in a situation which is very well connected. But if you're in northern British Columbia working on a fire, and you're 70 miles from any connectivity, or you're working at a clinic in Guatemala, then the business of downloading and uploading becomes somewhat different. And the ability to get the data in and integrate becomes very different.
It is absolutely true. So the challenge is, I work in areas where connectivity just doesn't happen. And when it does, it's very small bandwidth and things don't work well. This story doesn't work well in these situations. Well, we have to say that it is true. The operations dashboard will not show real-time information if folks are working while disconnected. These type of stories are somewhat resistant to bad connectivity, but at the end of the day, if I want Chris to get his work orders, he needs to be connected. This is a full story where we are trying to connect all of the applications and all of the workflow. But you can actually use these applications independently to work in absolutely offline environments. One example will be Collector or Survey123. You can work in absolute disconnection from the world for months and then come back and push the data.
I was just pointing out the story was not universal. It was depending on context of the type of connectivity you find in your city, but you won't always find in all parts of the world.
Right. Well, I wouldn't argue that you have to go to New York, style connectivity to make this work. This can actually work with tolerance to places where you have sometimes connectivity. But I agree that it works best the best your connectivity is.
Yeah, some of the things that I just want to mention that we're looking at moving forward too is that ArcGIS Pro, for example, as a desktop application, can connect and work with your portal or ArcGIS Online. For the Pro 1.4 release that the team will be working on this fall, they'll be able to take a web map offline. So you'd be able to disconnect and take your map offline, and you could think about working in a remote field office with Pro. One of the other aspects of that we're looking at is how could I then take that data from my local desktop where I'm not connected to any internet source, check out that data onto my mobile device, and check it back in. And then when I come back, and I could do analysis, do editing work in that field office, and then when I get back and get connected, I can upload that information to our central database. So that's another aspect of workflows that we're considering as we move forward.
I'm going to switch here for a second. How come?
You're extended.
I'm extended. Okay, Windows P, right? Duplicate. Okay, so just to your point, right? This is work, you mentioned specifically health, right? This is a report or a summary report of data that was captured by the World Health Organization end of 2015. And the data here, you will see where they were working. They were working in Iraq. This is a country that is at war. So they are working in Iraq for the polio campaign. And they were able actually to use these tools to capture data with folks in the field. Obviously, in most of the cases, in completely disconnected situation. 150 people participated in the field data collection effort. Yes?
What about the pricing of the workforce? It's a premium app or?
So let's talk about the licensing, the pricing of the applications that we saw. Everything that you saw today, from Workforce to Survey123, Collector, and Dashboard, is included already with your ArcGIS accounts. The only exception is Navigator. Navigator has an additional fee because it is using data from third parties. So to use Navigator, you need to pay extra. Everything else is included already.
Going back to the previous question, is there such a thing as an export file in case you never want to transfer over network?
Well, I mean, the question about, do you want to take that one?
With Collector, we actually have a geoprocessing tool that will take the data that you've collected off your mobile device, you can copy it onto your laptop, and then export it out as a file geodatabase. So you could do that today.
And would that work with our survey?
With Survey.
Similar. Yeah.
It's just data from a feature service, really. Well, how does it work with Survey?
In Survey123, the data is stored in a SQLite database that you don't even need Esri software to really look into it, right? But you can get the SQLite database and then you can sync it back with the feature service. A classic example, I am in the field with my mobile phone completely disconnected. Someone comes with a truck, I pass over the files, the guy goes with the truck to Baghdad, and then from Baghdad the data is pushed up. Collector, Survey123, in both of them you can do that.
How are you passing over those files?
Well, typically in an Android device, you can actually connect the phone into the desktop and simply bring down the files into the desktop. Even in iOS, with the iTunes application, you can access literally the folders in your device and bring over the data or push data. Actually, back to the example in Iraq, the connectivity situation was so bad they could not even download the application from the store. So they actually provisioned the devices with the binaries, literally sitting around a table to provision the 150 devices with the application and also with the data so they could go offline. The same happens on the way back with the data. when you are capturing it.
Right now, we have a public-facing server specifically to support our collector users. If somebody doesn't have that connectivity, what's involved when they come back to the office? Do they hire a collector, or do they have to deliver the post
So the question is, when they come back to the office, how do they actually synchronize their content back? Within the collector application, you can do that. So you open up the collector app once you've got connectivity to the network, and then on your map, you'll see an indicator of how many features that you actually collected or updated when you're in the field. You tap on the map itself, and it will synchronize those changes. And if you're in a low bandwidth connection, like we did a lot of work to optimize that in the last couple of releases of Collector, because we had instances where within the fires up in Northern California, a lot of the firefighters were doing damage assessment work in areas where they'd go to a base camp and they'd maybe have a MiFi connection. And they're all just collectors, but they're collecting features and photos. So we did two things. One, we let you scale the size of the photos that you capture, so you could reduce the resolution. And second, you can optimize the settings so that it will only push your updates and never try to pull others' updates down. And then we've optimized the web map, so you could say, I do want to get someone else's damage assessment record, but I don't want any of the photos they collected. So there's a lot of optimizations that really help you reduce the payload of how much information is going between the client and the server. But for the standard workflow, you get back in the office, you hit the sync button. Yeah.
In Workforce, we've seen you can add, one new job or assignment. Is it possible, for example, to upload a point feature class with attributes to each point for 10,000 assignments?
I actually showed you that. And I did it through Pro, right? That's what I was doing in Pro. We published the schema of the Workforce project. You can load it in any way you want. And we actually have a set of Python scripts that are out there today, actually, on GitHub that show you how to do that. In fact, one script that actually will look at the work assignments. So say Chris is out doing some of those rebate work, and I think, is he really there? Is he really doing that work where he said he was? At the time he said he was doing it, there's scripts that'll look at the time at which you completed that work assignment, from a distance, where was Chris? So there's all kinds of work you can do, not just in the planning for the field operations, but also from the analysis of the work that was done. And it's web apps and feature services. So, it's up to you as far as you want to take it.
One last question.
The coordinator can always see where the workers are, but can the workers opt out?
Yeah. So when Chris in his demonstration changed his working status from, were you offline or not working or on a break?
Yeah,
when you change it to working, that's when we'll update your location, and it's configurable at to what frequency we can update. We also have a breadcrumb trail of where you've been, and that's done every 30 seconds is when we update it. Before we release, we're going to add a setting inside of the administration of the project that says, I don't want you to ever log. So you could turn off that capability if you like.
That could be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're adding that setting. Yeah.
We will be more than happy to take more questions at the table. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.